Hello, welcome in. Hey, Marissa. Lori, I feel like we've been talking all night, but I probably wasn't all night.
Just the time zone.
Reminiscing about Stanford's. What'd you say?
It's just the time zones between Hawaii and
Portland.
yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you are on so late. And then I realized, oh, it's like 8 p.m. It just feels late.
Well, no, actually, I was up late, but
You
that's
were up late?
I was well midnight. That's late for me.
Yeah, that is late. I am dead asleep by that time. Rachel, there you have a loved one there. Cat?
This is Hope. She
Hope or
feels that
Pope?
this is Hope with an H. I don't know why I went with American Sign Language. Um,
That's cool.
Pope Kitty the First.
She looks super
yes,
affectionate.
she should be elected. She is most of
Absolutely.
the time, except for when she doesn't get her way.
She's Catholic. Okay, I'm
I
gonna
see you
mute now.
leaning into
Wow.
I'm gonna mute.
that.
I'm gonna mute.
Someone from like the last workshop, she did a round of applause, and I feel like that was warranted, Lori. Round of applause. All right. The person who suggested yesterday to invite people in as cohorts, that was such a genius idea. So I'm gonna do that as people roll in. Thank you for coming at thank you for coming to day two. And I'm gonna start sharing my screen. And I want to show you this cool new feature that I literally just found 5 minutes ago. Maybe you're like, I'm already a Canva expert. I've seen this before. But look at this. Can you see like a red curtain? Okay. Let's see faces that are super impressed. But I am like, wow, okay, look, you can unveil it. Oh, no, no, no. So I love a bit of schmaltz and cheese, and I thought that was cool. I think it's meant for teachers presenting to students who maybe have a little bit of a lower threshold for delight. But anyway, a little bit of fun. And this is day two. We did some stuff yesterday. We drew monsters, we shared them, we talked to our monsters, and now we're gonna like carry this forward. So we're like a third of the way through, or midway point, you could say, of designing career breakthroughs with experiments and the second day of this. So, intention for today is to feel inspired, hopefully, feel inspired and excited to give you a career, to create a career, just give you, to actually like cultivate it, a career which gives you energy. And some reminders here. I see a lot of you on camera. There was Hope the cat. Reminder to be on camera, especially if you're gonna come off mute and share later on. Being on camera, I'm such a proponent of this. I know you're like, you're really driving this home. Um, and I've been there, I've been like in EM on meetings all the time and had Zoom fatigue. I'll say if that's you and you're not able to show up, that's okay. But I've found and studies show that also like being on camera is really helpful for like us to pay attention to. And so like give yourself a chance to have this space to show up, to connect, and to be vulnerable. And also use the chat. Like we had the chat popping off yesterday. So feel free to use that to ask questions, to share. I'll ask you some questions similar to the journaling, but we won't do as much of reflective time. Um, just a caveat, if you feel like it's distracting, sometimes you're like, oh, another thing's popping up. That's okay too. You don't have to participate in the chat. You can hide it. You can go back and read it later. There's other ways. So use it in a way that feels supportive to you. Let's look at some monsters. So shout out to Vivian. This was a coffee monster. So chaotic drawing of multiple cups of coffee and making a huge mess. And then I love seeing like the transformations of the monsters too. And I thought this was like pretty cool. Like, okay, transforming the monster, multiple cups of coffee, chaos. into a nice, tall, refreshing glass of black coffee, which is like simple, it's to the point, it's more confident. Oh my God, Vivian just asked to join the meeting. So, Vivian, surprise, we're like talking about you as you enter the room. Speaking of, but this single, simple, refreshing glass of black coffee that knows who it needs to go to. Now, let me show you some more examples. And you can see these in the Slack channel on day one. Reminder to like keep sharing yours as well. You're not behind. I saw some people wording it like that. Like keep going. We have the whole week to do this and to like respond to other people's, to share yours. We have other things going on in the day. So keep sharing. And here's Tiffany. I love this part that said, some of the things my dragon said was, we have lots of treasure. Let's go flying. It's like monster breathing, big and strong dragon. And almost this cave is feeling a bit small now. Like we got to expand. And Marissa, I just saw you. This made me laugh so hard. This like, hi, my monster is typing. If any of you spend any time on Slack, you can probably relate so hard to this of this monster that like with the sound of the Slack or notification vibration. And like, what if we could transform this monster so that we have bandwidth and everyone can move forward with their day? And I respond when I have space.
During our session yesterday, I got
Yeah.
a text message from my neighbor and a phone call from another business. And I'm like, I had this blocked out on my calendar already. Nobody ever calls or texts me. And it's only when I am doing something else.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. So did you create the bandwidth and not respond?
oh, I responded later.
You responded later. Yes. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. And this like bearded monster of monsters typing, and we're gonna respond later, even though like all the inputs are coming in now, even more so. That's funny. So day 3, reminder, tomorrow is like coaching open house. I've been guiding you through some more like interactive workshops. It'll be really helpful if you want to experience like what is coaching actually like? And caveat like coaching my flavor, my style of coaching. So I really recommend coming to that if you want to hear from other people that are bringing things that they want to get coached on. If you want to get coached directly, it's a great way to get immersed and get a taste of it. Okay. So today is designing career breakthroughs with experiments. And this picture, I asked AI to generate this through Canva. And it was so like ridiculous that I had to put it in there. Maybe like some irony, if you will. We're gonna take our monster, and we're gonna go flying with them. We're gonna take it for a spin. And don't worry if you didn't do your monster yet, you weren't able to attend day 1. Um, that's okay. Like you're still gonna have tools to do this. And I'll frame it for you accordingly. So first thing is, let's put this in the chat. Like, how is your monster? Let's check in with it today. Maybe it's your cup of black coffee. Maybe it's your Slack monster. How is your monster feeling today? And you can put it in the chat. And those of you that didn't have time to think about your monster yet, how are you feeling today? You can put that in the chat too. She napping. Peaceful monster. On the ups, I read that as UPS for a second. Interrupting Yetis, feeling quieter and more thoughtful. Oh, the Pac-Man monster. I remember that one. Feeling a little bloated. Perky. Yeah, the Florida grandma monster. Remember the wooden spoon that Elizabeth had? Ready for karaoke. Tired was up too late eating mice. Yeah, Liana had the snake monster. Check that one out. Moody. Yeah, real one. Archie. All right, let's keep going. I saw Blob monster too. So let me frame this for you of like today's talk. This is going to be super powerful, like really helpful if you're feeling like this, like you're feeling confused about what to do next with your career and you feel stuck and overwhelmed, or you're at a crossroads with your career, maybe with life a little bit. I have a couple options right now, but it's really hard for me to pick one or just stay focused to find what I want at this moment. And maybe you've tried some of these things or a combo of these things. You've tried talking to friends and family members. They kind of sound like a broken record and they don't really get it. And then it ends up feeling like super lonely, or they're like, oh, that's enough of talking about this. You probably lurked on LinkedIn. I know, I can't remember who I connected with and said this in the Slack intro, but they're like, LinkedIn, like hellhole, worst platform ever. And like, I agree. I also like we find ourselves on LinkedIn even though it drains us. Or we've gotten caught up in thinking we need to create like the perfect message, the perfect resume, the perfect website. Like, hell, you need to make the perfect decision and like get it right this time. I bet so many of us feel like that. And probably avoided yourself like the plague. And what that could look like is spending hours scrolling or like avoiding numbing, avoiding thinking about like what those next steps are because it feels really overwhelming. And you probably say, like, I can't tell what I really want. Probably because it's too scary to think about those things, about failure or about deciding between all those options. So here's what we're going to cover today. The agenda really is why experiments, how we can make them your friend, why they're important, why they are your number one friend. I'm going to walk you through like a couple of real life examples that I've seen and different. I've tried to give you like a sampling of different flavors of experiments. Some of the most common like gotchas that I've seen when trying to make like a career pivot or even just like running an experiment with our career, some things to look out for. And then I'll give you a guide of like how to make an experiment for yourself. And then if we have time, some Q&A. So why I'm like touting experiments as like this really important thing. And here's why it's important. So you've probably seen this. This is like the loop that I see over and over. And like I hear it so often, usually like when people come to me, they're like, this is what's going on. Especially for like really ambitious, like hardworking women and non-binary folks in tech. Like you are overthinking, and then you're doing like a research spiral, which looks like a bunch of tabs, or you're talking to a bunch of people, you're reading like so many articles. Maybe it's now it's ChatGPT has replaced that. And then it's burnout. And then it's, I don't want to do anything. Like that was way too much information. I'm going to do nothing. And then crap, I feel horrible now. Like I didn't do anything. Like I'm beating myself up because I didn't get anywhere. I'm not capable of doing anything. And then the overthinking starts again. It's exhausting because it's like someone once described it to me as like a merry-go-round that she couldn't get off of. And I feel like that hurts and it's so exhausting. Like we don't deserve that, frankly. And so experimentation is a way to give you data you can work with. Okay, like what are some of the facts that we're looking for and how can we collect it? It can shift us away from like being a perfectionist and giving us permission to like let's take a break from that and let's just see what happens. Let's try it. And I've also seen experiments be a way to accelerate your results. So instead of something taking like 6 months or even 3 months and something that we dread, um, running experiments that could take like, we're going to talk about it in the time frame of like half an hour, but even like within a week, making changes. It's a case for why. Like where do we want to experiment? There are so many ways. It could be deciding on your next role. Like, what kind of company do I want to work for? What position do I want to do? Where do I want to work? It could be and how you're networking. Maybe um, group settings like Meetup. Do people still use meetup.com or like conferences? Maybe that's not your thing. Maybe that is so your jam, but experimenting with different types of networking. Fellow introverts, you might like one-on-one. Job interviews, like how you're conducting those interviews, how you're showing up in them. Maybe it's how you're presenting yourself in meetings, or how asking questions in meetings, or maybe it's how do I start a business, or what kind of clients do I want to reach, or do I want to niche down? I know that's come up before. Like, what kind of clients do I want to serve? How do I build a portfolio career? Or setting boundaries in relationships, both with coworkers and outside of work, you know, human, holistic. Always set boundaries there. The point is, like, you can experiment everywhere. And I bet you've run some of your own experiments. I mean, I will put money down that you've done this and vouch for you. Like, think back to your own life, and we'll take a pause and think about this. What experiments have you run? For example, like in the bottom, maybe I could only find healthy ingredients for some reason, but that's okay. You've tried a recipe and you've tried that out and seen how it tastes and if you liked cooking it. Or maybe you've had a Bunsen burner in seventh grade and run an experiment. I'd love for you to put let's do it in the chat of like what are some of those experiments in your life that you've run before? All right. Mixology, making bread. Camilla, I wonder if did you post that sourdough bread picture? Um, Different ways of interacting with my toddlers, cutting out the milk to see if it made him less fussy, and it did. Trying different networking events, yeah, in person, hybrid, dating, 100% big experiment. Casey said creative writing workshop, very topical, and experimenting with a calisthenics class. Moving to another country. Oh, consulting. Lori said, I tried consulting and actually like that experiment went well. It didn't stop. So many things. Liana, waking up at 6:30. Yeah. Also shout out to Liana. Liana, I hope you promote this in the Slack later, but Liana's has this like really cool open source like job searching tool that helps you like track your job applications and has like 15 collaborators while she's also working at Nike. So just shout out Liana for doing that. And is looking for collaborators and beta testers for that. Okay, keep sharing and read these. Read some of the other ways people are experimenting. And let me give you some other examples. Okay, so this is Paulina. And Paulina is a senior software engineer. And when we met, she was like, I'm hoping to get over the fear, the confidence block that's preventing me from taking even the tiniest steps. And in this context, she was working full time as an engineer. And she's like, well, I'm considering moving to another role, but like, I hate interviews. You've probably been in that same situation, especially in tech. You're like, I'm going to have to study all these algorithms. It's not even relevant to what I'm going to do for work. And it's like so daunting. You're doing that while someone just stares at you and assesses whether you're smart enough. And so for her, interviews make me freeze. That's what she said. And in fact, um, Helena would like tear up and freeze during interviews, which was like really emotional, but also was just interesting because she was an amazing singer and like loved performing in that way and sharing that part of herself. But there's something about engineering interviews that felt so terrible. So this was the blocker and one of the things that we worked on together. And so then one of the things she really liked at work was her coworkers, when she had a question or they had a question, they would pair on something together. And it felt like we're a team, we're like debugging this. And so what would it look like if we treated interviews like debugging with a teammate? So this is something that's her comfort zone, something she really likes. How can we recreate that with interviews? And the hypothesis there was asking for time to think will help me keep calm during interviews. and treating it like debugging and debugging with a teammate. And the reason why asking for time was really important for her was like, as an introvert, she's like, I need time to just process things, to understand the question that's being asked, and then I can come back and say like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. And then also, when it came up where she was like tearing up and then the interviewer would see it, it was just she like shame would trigger and it'd be so embarrassing that the interview wouldn't continue. So what would happen actually if we asked for time and we called it out that like, hey, this might happen or this is happening. I'm just gonna recollect myself and go off camera for a second. I just need to regroup. I'm feeling a little bit nervous. And so the experiment, I'm going to deliberately pause for my next two interviews and say that to the interviewer and see what happens. See if the sky falls down, see if I feel worse, but also see if I feel better. And so this is, I like made an image of an elephant in the room coding. Um, like calling out the elephant in the room actually was so, so helpful and also gave the interview and her like a human connection point because we all cry and we all feel embarrassed and on the spot. And so actually naming that helped her feel a lot more confident in that moment and made it less scary. And this is, you can send voice notes through email. So this is what our email exchanges, but she said like being upfront about like the performance anxiety within interviewers made a huge difference. And yeah, I'm happy where I ended up. She ended up getting a job for 180K. And then that's just like a voice note of me responding, like screaming for a minute, not an hour, a minute. So that's an example. And I'm walking you through like, okay, here's a hypothesis. Here's what we want to test. Here's how it went down. And I'm curious, without jumping to like the actual experiment and how we're going to design it, what is something that you're curious about testing? And I'll give you some examples. Like it could be deciding on your next role, networking, like someone mentioned, the hybrid in person, the meetings, the building the brand, um, building a brand. What does it mean? It's like so vague. I've done even like a personal branding workshop, writing a newsletter. It could be public speaking. I know there's a speaker who spoke at Lead Dev recently. I want to do more public speaking and get paid for it. Or it could be experimenting with your schedule. Liana just mentioned like waking up at 6:30 or something, learning a new skill. There are a lot of creative people here. Maybe it's having more creativity in your life, more hobbies, movement like calisthenics or not calisthenics, or how you introduce yourself. So I want you to ask yourself these questions and then um, let's do, I feel like I'm talking a lot at you. I know it's the nature of this workshop where I'm like have a lot to give you, more than the journal one, but I'd love to hear from one or two people. What are you curious about testing? So put it in the chat and then let's do introvert time where you can just think and write, and then I'll have one or two people share. What are you curious about testing? And you can also ask yourself other forms of this question of like, what would I like to test? What do I want more info on? And you could say it like this, like, I'm curious about what it's like to write a newsletter or how to network and not have it be so exhausting. Think about my schedule. Yeah, I'll give it about 10 more seconds. Actually, a lot to write in a short amount of time. I'm impressed with some people's typing skill. Okay. Would anyone like to share, let's say like one or two people, share what you wrote, or like if you haven't written it yet, that's okay. What do you want to experiment on? And let's see each other's faces for a second. Who wants to share theirs? I can read yours. I will read yours, but I'd love if one. Okay, actually, no, no, we're gonna pause. I know you have voices because we've done like the monster thing before, and everyone's like, "Oh, I want to talk about my monster." So, who wants to share just like what you've written so we can get like another
I don't
voice in
mind
the room?
sharing. I don't mind.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks,
Um,
Elizabeth.
every time I look at job postings, everything seems boring. Like literally everything seems boring. And I'm like, I don't know why. Am I just tired of working or what's going on? So I want to find out how I can find something. Is there something that exists that's fun? And if not, is there a job that hasn't been created yet that is going to be the fun one? So I'm I was thinking about this lately. It's like, can I expand like my perception of reality to be able to find that job that doesn't actually exist now? I don't know. That's a big experiment, but
I
I want to
love
have
it.
fun. Come on.
Yeah, I want to have fun. Everything I'm looking at literally is so boring. Like I'm yawning while I'm looking at this. So can I create something else? Is it maybe it's also identifying what is boring? Like what are the things that are boring me? But I love that. Like, okay, do I create something else? Where is it that I can have fun and like feel like I'm playing? Be playful with it. What about one more person? Yeah. Thanks for you don't have to raise your hand, but go for it. I love that you did.
I actually didn't write mine in the chat because I was thinking in and I was prepping my lunch, so I didn't get time to write. But what I was thinking was I'm finding myself with like less time to do my hobbies, and like things that like outside of work and outside of all the stress that's going on, like really engage me. And so I'm thinking of like experimenting with ways to create that time. For me, the hobby that I resonate with the most is reading. So just making that time to read when I feel like I kind of have the time and energy to do that. And a thing I'm thinking is like, after dinner, I usually do cleanup for myself and my husband. And I feel like I linger a lot on that cleanup. And then by the time I'm done with it, I'm just like ready for bed. And I'm trying to see like, can I time box that cleanup? Like 15 minutes should be done. What am I doing cleaning up for longer than that? And then go and like read a book. So that's something I'm thinking about as an experiment. But yeah.
I love that. Time boxing cleaning so then we can read. What are you reading right now?
I'm reading a book that came out this month from one of my favorite authors, Alka Joshi. She's written The Henna Artist, in case anyone's read that. It's historical fiction, sorry. And it's
Oh,
called 6 Days in Bombay.
well, I always see you like nodding. For some reason, you're always like front and center of my screen. But perhaps like a fellow reader of that author. And oh, let me okay, maybe someone's at a coffee shop. Thank you for sharing that, both of you. And okay, some insight into different experiments, like job board, really boring, the roles out there that are out there. Can I create something else? And then like, oh my God, I really love to read. Like this is the hobby that I feel good when I do it. And so can I, rather than like having cleaning taking up my whole night and I'm super exhausted, like, can I time box it or have my husband do the cleaning? And then can I go read my favorite author? Sorry, maybe you didn't say favorite author. All right, let's go back to the screen. I love those moments when like I can hear from you. You can probably tell. So let's walk through some of like the gotchas of testing out these things. One of those things that like we just heard was time boxing it, which is a really good one. Most people actually sneak peek, like make the experiment really big. And this is like the biggest place I see people getting hung up, like making it really complicated or not having like an end date or citing like crazy numbers. Like I need to reach out to 50 people and then it feels overwhelming and then we don't do it. Or it's unclear what we're testing. We're like, we want to feel excited about jobs, but we're not sure what like exactly that means. And it feels kind of obscure or nebulous. But what is it that we're looking for so that we know we can keep our eyes out and also know when it's done? And also not connecting. Another way of saying this is not sharing. You already all are doing this because you're part of this challenge and it's very community based. But letting people in while you're running this experiment and like letting them know what you're doing and how gives you an opportunity to get help or get introduced to a connection, networking, essentially. Also, a gotcha is like reflecting, not reflecting. So, like, you're going through the motions without reflecting on, like, oh, this is why I'm doing this, or here's what I've learned. I'm just kind of doing without like an iteration for people who are like PMs, engineers, anyone that like runs in sprints, you'll know like, okay, this is the next iteration. We're going to reflect, do a retro, and then how can we make it feel better next time? And then I would have thought like, you might not say these words, like it's got to be perfect, but there are signs of this, like, um, I just need to do this well. Like I only have one shot. There's so much pressure on this. What if I fail? And so this like huge weight on our shoulders of, okay, now I got to make the perfect experiment. And it's really precious. And how can we take some of that preciousness away and make it a little more easeful? And let me give you another example. So Carol was part of my group coaching program, and also actually we work together as EMs, as engineering managers. And she's also about to have a baby. And she really wanted to start a newsletter and build a personal brand. And the why behind this, I think that's important because everyone has different reasons. She's like, I have so much to say on tech leadership, specifically like not the tech bro stuff of like, oh my God, executive presence and being authoritative and being like really aggressive, which I've had like male clients come to me and ask for that. She's like, there's another way, there's a better way. And I want my voice to be out there and create that space. And I think it's also important to call out like the money aspect. She wanted to create more money and have like freedom in her schedule and also like I'm gonna curse like fuck you money, which is when you make enough money where you can have options. It's like one of my favorite things. So the experiment for her was, is it safe to put my voice out there and talk about tech? Like, we've all been on, maybe we've all been on Reddit or Stack Overflow or, like Hacker News. Is it safe to put my voice out or LinkedIn? Is it safe to put my voice out there and talk about tech? Like, how does it feel? Are people going to like pile on and criticize me? What are my coworkers going to think? Can I put my own spin on it? Will it be original? Does it need to be original? Am I having fun? Like, am I enjoying this? Am I enjoying like writing my newsletter? And Laura, like, I just want to call this out. Like, Laura said, I'm enjoying this so much, a little shy today, but really glad to be here. And thank you for saying that. That like, I feel that. And I love that you called out being shy as a fellow shy person. That's real. And thank you for saying that. So the experiment for Carol, like, okay, we really want to make it containable. So what's like the smallest thing we could do? First, it was like, let's figure out what newsletter platform. There's so many we could talk about. We could do a whole other talk about that. But for her, it was like, cool, Substack. That's where a lot of creators are. I want to write one post in 1 week. I'm going to give myself 1 week and just see what comes out. She ended up writing 12 posts that I then like the women authentic, we like all reviewed them and like gave her feedback and stuff. But here's her Substack on the right that she launched and I ended up feeling really good. Like, the experiment was, am I enjoying this? Is it safe? Yeah, she got like a lot of great feedback and people were like, loved her flavor of introducing it with Star Wars Stars Trek, sorry, and the warp core of team dynamics. And she said like finding her voice in writing and like experimenting in this way gave her the courage to share her experiences, even though she was, speaking of shy, initially shy about it. So different flavors like newsletter, personal brand, showing up in job interviews, reading more, looking at like roles and carving out like what we want to do as our next role. And let's design your mini experiment. And I've officially given you a new job title. You're a detective. So I want you to think of this like you're a detective or a scientist. Like we're figuring this out, we're on the hunt, and you're collecting data. And bonus points if you like bring your monster along. And you're like, okay, I'm like riding on the back of this monster that has wings, and we're on this quest together, or on a quest. And I'll share the slides. You may want to screenshot this, or someone like someone last time, I was so grateful, copied and pasted these questions in the chat. Here are the questions that I want you to go through when you're thinking of writing your own experiment, creating your own experiment. These are the like most important things that will set you up. So what are you curious about right now? We just went through some of those examples and got your memory. Starting to think about that. Thank you, Katie. What is the shortest time frame I could do this? So like the MVP, minimal viable product, but like the hackiest, smallest thing we could do. What is the shortest time frame? Even like it's not unheard of to say like in 5 minutes. I want you to think like that small, usually 5 to 30 minutes. But if we're gonna say like 3 months, that's too long. I would say actually the longest is probably 2 weeks for this. Number 3, what do you want to learn or feel from this? Like what are we testing? What do we want to feel afterwards? How will you gather data? So how are we going to collect this? What data are we going to collect? How will we be able to like be a detective and then like collect things, the hints, the clues? And what would make it fun? And a caveat on fun. Fun may be your word, playful, ease. Ease is actually like more of my word, but there might be a word to you that like really resonates. What would make it interesting? Or what would make me curious? I want you to have your own flavor of your North Star essentially for number 5 of like what would make it blank. You're gonna Mad Libs that of what that word is for you. So here are the questions to note down. And then what would make this a success? So going back to like, what do you want to learn or feel? Okay, what would make this a success in terms of like how I feel or what I would learn? Knowing that, the success criteria. And then inversely, like what would make this a failure? And I want to really emphasize here that failure is a good thing. So let me give you examples of failures. Yeah, thank you. I know it's like really 6 and 7 on there. You all have my back. Thank you. So Shiva worked as an operations lead at a startup and felt really lost on what to do. And I feel knocked back a notch after being laid off from my job. And some of you may be feeling like this, like I've been knocked back a notch. I think that's like a really good way to phrase it. Um, Sometimes this happens, I hear this a lot, like from an experience with a bad boss who's not supportive, or being laid off, or wow, the job market's hard and it's been months. Like I feel really dejected. I just want to normalize feeling like that. You're not alone. And for her, it was, I feel lost and I'm not sure what direction feels like me. Also, like caveat on this, operations lead, like she's like, I'm very much a generalist. Like, how do I explain what I do in a world where it's like pushing me to, it feels like they're pushing me to specialize. So her hypothesis was, okay, exploring some of my untapped interests will bring me clarity. And what is the question that could come out of this? What if I allowed myself to explore what I'm curious about, like these untapped interests? And we did this brainstorm together of thinking about everything that she was interested in, like from her childhood to now. What are those things? And one of those things was her childhood dream of working on a farm. I think she went on like a field trip to a farm at one point, and she's like, "Oh, I really loved like being out there in nature." She lives in a city. And what happens if she revisited this? Like, would she be able to feel less blocked, feel a little more found? It's a little cheesy. Okay, but feel less lost. It's like she found herself. So what she did actually was, here's the experiment. Like, do I like working on a farm? I'm just going to try it for one day. Like, we're not saying, okay, we're buying the overalls and we're going to go work on a farm for the rest of our lives. But like, could I do this for one day and see what it's like? And how would it make me feel? That's another thing, is how would this change my mindset? And so she found, I was like, here's a website. I've done like some scuba diving and like worked on, anyway, there's a website called Woofing. I was like, here, go check out this website. She found a farm an hour away and she went and worked there. It was a women-owned farm. And she sent a picture of her like working there. She connected the farmer who gave her like a tour. She worked with the horses. And these are examples of failures, right? Like she's like, cool, I really liked it, but I liked it for one day only. I'm not going to be a farmer. This is not where I'm going with my career, and that's okay. Um, but what it did do was it opened up other things, like it unlocked, okay, if I give myself permission to try out these interests that I have, what would that look like? And that lily padded her to other things. And this isn't I will never sell you like instantaneous fix, like, wow, this happened overnight. This is over a couple months. But while we worked together, she then started working at our yoga studio. She was a yoga instructor, but she actually wanted to work just like at the front desk and interact with people. So she tried that out. She didn't like that either, but she liked the people interaction and she really loved clothes. I know there's a lot of people that love fashion here. And she tried out working as a stylist and loved like helping people feel better about themselves. She also moved to Atlanta. She moved cities. And then she landed her dream job at Spanx. She like really loved the founder, Sarah Blakely, and she ended up working there. And it all started from this horse where she's like, I don't like farming enough, but cool. Like I have put that to rest for now at this time in my life. And it was a way of like moving her to build momentum, to get like more confidence that she could take action. And the things that she found interesting that may have been latent and we don't allow ourselves to do as much because we get caught up in things like cleaning, even if it's like, oh, I want to read that novel, those opportunities to get to do those things. And I'll share one of my own personal failures. This is Maggie Louise Confections. You can Google it. She was featured on Oprah's Favorite Things. I was living in Austin, Texas, and working as an engineer. And like, oh my God, these chocolates are so beautiful. I want to be a chocolatier. I always liked Willy Wonka. I love eating chocolate. This is going to feel really whimsical and creative. And so this was back in 2016. I just found this email this morning and I wrote her. She's this like Harvard lawyer who turned chocolatier. And it's like, great. Like, I want to be you. And I lasted one day, like Shiva. Actually, I lasted 4 hours. These are also some like amazing chocolates. It was so mundane. I spent the time cleaning chocolate molds, molds that were shaped like cockroaches. I had to blow dry the molds and then clean them with Q-tips because we weren't allowed to use soap because the molds are really precious. The cockroach thing was for like a landscape client. It wasn't as glamorous as I thought in my head. And it was quite repetitive. And frankly, it was like much harder work, even when I was in my 20s, but like it wasn't what I thought it was. And that was okay. Like that was part of my trying things, experimenting and seeing. And it's up for being like quite a teachable moment, but also like just a funny story. And Vivian, actually, another thing is I recently was going to work at Starbucks because they provide benefits for IVF, especially in Hawaii. You can work part-time and then get benefits. But then I found out that I'd have to work there for 3 months and it just didn't make sense like while running my business full time. Uh, yeah, Starbucks, hardest job I ever had. Um, without, I mean, full transparency, those are other things that maybe a failure. Also, insurance had like a lot of so many stipulations. But examples of experiments to like try and run. And like what I want you to remember is like make it fun for you. It's not for anybody else. It's not for your neighbor or like the coworker on LinkedIn, for me, or your loved one. It's for you. And this is the challenge that that I invite you all to do, like to keep our momentum going. So we had the monsters yesterday. I want you to think about an experiment you can run today and share it in the day 2 challenge on Slack. Whoa, typo. Oh, you get it. Share an experiment you can run today. And also, if you want feedback on your experiment, you can DM me or just put like that you want feedback, and then other people can give you feedback as well. Yeah, the Slack challenge. So here it is. I'll also post this in our Slack channel. And besides like trolling me about the word challenge, what were your takeaways today? And you can put that in the chat. I also have so many more experiments that like I want to share with you that I've seen, like AI D&D characters that people have interacted with, or starting businesses. I can add them later. Just ask me about them. Rewrite LinkedIn job posts. Ooh, I love that idea. I think that will be engaging too with people. And also give you some clarity on what would make it fun. Experiments are everywhere. Yeah, Sam, you're experimenting by moving too. And to reframe my brain and eyes to see them, the expansiveness of experimenting. It's moving so fast. And conditions for an abundance mindset. Yeah, versus scarcity. Katie, I'm actually pretty good at experiments, but find it really easy to go all in. I think this gives me permission to experiment in more bite-sized pieces. Yes, hell yeah. Oh, a quick dopamine hit. Yeah, the 5 to 30 minutes. Yeah. Liana, okay. Liana, like we've worked together before, so this is why I was like saying this, but I remember there was one where like, okay, I need to go to this Liana was saying like I need to go to this conference for 8 hours. Like I signed up and she experimented with like what happens if I just went for like a few hours, had the rest of my day, and that create like meaningful interaction? How would I feel doing that? Okay. So if so far you've enjoyed like day one, day two, I want to offer this to you. It's a group coaching program for mid-senior women, mid to senior women and non-binary friends in tech. And you may have heard of this. I'm going to move this because it's an image of me and then another image. But this is my group coaching program that I like care so much about because I've seen it be really helpful for people in both community and like figuring out what you want next, like finding yourself really. Um, and like we go through this together. And I've seen like real changes happen. And half of it's actually like filled up right now. So if you're interested, actually, I guess I put the link here. Okay. It's halfway filled up, but like let me tell you some of the people who are in it or have gone through the program. Like for instance, Claire, who's a data scientist, and also like I will always brag about this. She's a 3-time Penguin published book author about cocktails. Her last book was about spooky cocktails. There's a product manager who wants to start her own business, wants to do more consulting, an engineering manager who, I mean, you probably know who she is already. She's inauthentic. She's building out a tiki bar, or she built out a tiki bar in her basement. And it's figuring out if she wants to stay in tech. She really likes tangible things like with her hands and woodworking, or a vegan chef plus coach plus designer who's creating her portfolio career. And you probably get a sense of this already because you're in the Slack, is we'll say it's like bringing such a well-matched cohort together in like a bright little corner of the internet. Like this is what it's like. The vibes, basically. And we celebrate together. So different things like having friends in town and having a really good second interview or like the session. Um, or having a call where like I felt valued and got this job offer. What I actually suggest you do is like read through some of, I'll probably link this, but like you can look on that link too. Read through like what people say about the program. For instance, like Pauline, who's the chef I was just talking about, like like getting permission to like pursue passion projects and start a business I was too afraid to chase. Like people talk a lot about the community and the group. So read this and like what I'll say is if it feels like, oh, I really am excited to do this, then I ask you to sign up, or if you have questions, to DM me about it. And like how it works is we're going to start on May 19th, the week of May 19th, and it's 2,700. And that includes one-on-one calls as well as 6 group calls. We meet like roughly every 2 weeks. There's a Memorial holiday, but we also have a Slack community, which is like one of the biggest parts. It's sort of vibes like this, but more engaging and more like hands-on tactical. And then we also have, now we have community co-working sessions too. You'll get access to all like the membership area with exercises and recordings. Yeah, 24/5 on the Slack. And so if you're ready and if you feel excited, if you're like, wow, I've already gotten a lot from these couple days, then this this would be a good fit for you. And actually last year's challenge, like 4 of the people of this cohort that's like planning to meet up with each other because they got along so well came from this challenge. And that's part of the reason like I love running these because it's been so impactful. And this will be our 6th cohort this year. We're like going to 12 months. Okay. So I'll leave you with like this last image of this is from the new Happy, which now she has a book, but you can follow the Instagram or the LinkedIn of this image on the right of you don't achieve goals by doing it all perfectly. You achieve goals by trying and learning, and here's all the different colored blocks, and they're not all stacked together. And I feel like that very much aligns with like our ethos and experiments too. And we've got some time too. Does anyone want to talk through their experiment or share it?
wonder if I feel like the one that I picked is really big, and I know time is very short, but I wonder what like your
Hmm.
quick version of how might you make this smaller would be, which was building a portfolio career, obviously humongous, right? But underneath I wrote, because that could encompass starting business or building a personal brand. But for me also, it's like big gigs, like big things that pay a lot versus like little things that are also really amazing. When you add all those up, it's a bunch of, specifically like design, like a big client or like a funny little illustration. Um,
Hmm.
um, and when you're trying to bridge all that, how to show up where or how.
Yeah.
Um, that's the big picture. Like I'm
Okay.
curious about like turning that into a 5 to 30 minute experiment.
Yeah. Okay. First, let's pick one. So I heard like, okay, there's all these things. Like, do I pick like which route can I do? I know I want to do portfolio career of some kind, like some flavor. And then, ooh, is it like illustrations or is it big clients and like getting money? But like, where do I show up? How do I show up? It's just, how do I build a portfolio career is like the big question. How do we make it smaller?
Mhm.
Okay. So first, which which one is there? We need to pick one and like distill it down. So which one calls to you like the most? Which one seems the most interesting?
Some are necessary, all are interesting. Like a big client is a necessary thing, I think, but like I just had a small win on a little illustration thing that was really
Oh,
fun. So it could be like finding another project like that, maybe.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I would also challenge that part about why is it necessary, like a big client. Um, like for instance, I believe in transparency. So like some months it's not always like this, but like last month I had a 25K month and I don't have any big clients or like big B2B. I have one startup. So I would challenge that. But okay, the illustration that felt good. How did you find that client?
She was a former client,
Okay.
so my net.
And your network. Yeah, yeah. And what did you do for her?
Um, an illustration for something called Monsieur Pickleball, like a little logo, like really absurd and so small and so funny, but so fun. So
Yeah.
don't usually do illustration or logo design. So I could find
Okay.
one.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm looking down because I'm taking notes about what you're saying, by the way. So, an illustration logo design, which is something that you normally don't do, but you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the stuff that you normally do?
Client strategy, product design, like bigger, more
Mm,
corporate or just bigger projects,
hmm.
things for businesses.
Yeah. Can you give me something? Give me an example.
Oh gosh. I don't, a mobile app for a
Yeah.
big company.
Okay. Did you do that as an employee?
Yeah, as an employee of a
Uh-huh.
consultant and
Okay,
lead.
okay.
So just very, very different than one-on-one with somebody who needs something that my hands alone create.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You were working on a team. Oh, as when you were a consultant, was that comprised of a team or just you?
Team for sure.
Okay, got it. So one question is, do you want to do more illustration and logo work?
I'd be curious about it. I think that's
Mm,
what sparked for me when you said some, just like a portfolio career, you can look back and you did it. Or at some point you look behind you and you're like, look at all the things. And
yeah.
so like, oh, this was fun. This was successful, a bright spot.
Mm,
Um, if you did it another time or two, then you could be like, oh, that's a piece of the whole. So it could be like a little area to do another version of it again to test
yeah. You could
hypothesis.
almost
Yeah.
you could run an experiment and see if you like it a second time, like a second round. How does this feel? There's
Mhm.
something really reflective about like your definition of portfolio careers. And I say that because like it's just a buzzword that I think a lot of people are saying. But like what I loved about yours was like, oh, when I reflect back, like here are the things that I've done, or your words like were successful. But like here's like a body of work, it almost sounds like.
Yeah.
What questions come up for you?
Um, I think that would be really satisfying. I think that's the end state. I believe
Mm,
in it as a thing, and I believe you would get there. But if you were
mm,
actively like, oh, here I am right now, and I think I want to end up there, like, what do you do? What do you do to experiment towards pushing towards that versus just having done a lot of things and then it turns out you had that? That's where I was like interested in, how you take a big thing and actually intentionally experiment.
yeah. Can we vocalize, like, can we say what the end state is again?
Mm.
Where you want to get to?
Uh, Being gainfully employed through your own, like not being someone else's employee, and that's how you're,
Uh-huh.
gainfully employed because you have a salary coming from one company, but that you've pulled it off, you're paying your mortgage, you're happy, you can vacation, all these
Mm,
things off of a collection of things you're being paid for from like your varied skill sets.
yeah. Okay. So I make my own money and I can do fun stuff like vacation and I'm safe. Like I can cover my mortgage.
Yeah.
And I work for myself and I do a bunch of things, a collection, you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you're already doing that.
I think so.
So by your definition, like, did you get paid to do the Mr. Pickleball logo?
Yeah.
Okay. Does it feel like you're doing that?
I mean, in this conversation, it's like, yes, oh, yes, I'm doing that. So I guess it's more like, how do you own that?
Mm.
How do you like, instead of being like, oh, I think I'm doing it, or oh, I pulled it off, but like, how do you be like, this is what I do? All these things. Maybe it's my other question of like, how do you show up where is sort of shifting the, being intentional, being more intentional.
Mm. I feel like they're not necessarily like two different directions, but what I'm hearing is like, how do I feel it, like embody it?
Mhm.
Like, oh, I actually did these things and I actually have a portfolio career. And like, wow, I did that logo. And then the other part was like something about how do I show up?
Yeah, I guess like, how do you put yourself out as saying,
Hmm.
I will also do this for you, or I can do this like services offered or whatnot, especially if it's like
Yeah,
a
yeah, great. Okay, so do you want to take the logo one or do you want to take a
you could
different path?
you could stick with that.
Okay, let's stick with it because it's like a concrete example for now. So the question was like, how do I show up? Which is really like, how do I tell people I do this? And who do I tell?
Yeah,
So it's a question for you. How do I tell people? And like, what's a simple way to tell people?
just tell them.
Yeah.
Tell people that I can tell without all the overhead of telling them perfectly. Like, you know.
Yeah, you just told a bunch of us.
Yeah, there anybody need an illustration? Yeah. Okay. So
And
that's how
then simply like saying it, I would say like, I'm putting like more of an advising hat on. You could also like the lowest lift way is that like just saying it here, getting in rooms where other people can hear about it. And then two, you can like send an email to people and be like, here's an example of something. Here's Mr. Picklehead. And like, if you're looking for this kind of service or you know someone, like, here's how to contact me or email me back. Doesn't need to be a website. Doesn't need to be a LinkedIn post. It can be, but it could be like a one paragraph, and I mean like 3 to 5 sentences of an email.
yeah. Yeah. And I think like this kind of seems so silly. It's like, well, just say this is what you do.
Silly?
It's very different than like where I've been focusing
Yeah.
professionally. So it's almost realizing like, oh, this tiny little thing is a thing I could do, and it's not even tiny unto itself, but it feels very different. Like it feels like the stepchild or even something else of my professional self. And so
Yeah.
how to like bring that closer to be like, I don't know, maybe you don't treat it really differently, or maybe the interesting thing for me on all these things is the visual research and everything that goes
Mm.
into the little thing, and maybe you can share it.
Ooh.
Maybe I could
Yeah.
share that without
Yeah.
getting perfect about it all, but you know, even if
Yeah.
it's one little thing at the end that feels silly next to some kind of corporate work, or
Mhm.
what have you, like honoring it.
Yeah. Okay. I heard so many great things there, Susanna, that I was like writing away. One thing, and right now, like this is feeling like the stepchild of like, oh, I've done this like full-time serious corporate work, and like here's a stepchild. Um, do you want it? What would you want it to be instead of the stepchild? How would you want it to show up?
As honored, like as legit,
Mm.
like
Mhm.
as legit as the thing that probably would pay better or look better on paper, but wouldn't have been as fun.
Mm. Mhm.
So there's a lot of
Honored.
judgment I can tell I'm putting on it, that if I just got rid of that, um, they wouldn't be in the room.
Yeah. I also want to just name like how brave you are for doing talking about this here. Like it's unformed, it's messy, and that's, I mean, both of us having that kind of interaction, we're like feeling it out together, and you're doing it in front of people. So I just want to name like how fucking brave you are for doing that.
Well, thanks for everyone listening to me. I was just like, oh, I'll take you up on your space. Thank you.
And if you read the chat like afterwards, I'm also not looking at it, but like there are questions and like there's a lot of support there. So stepchild and then like moving to a place of like honor, afraid like apart from judgment. What would that look like? If we really honor it.
I think actually showing the full process. What's interesting,
Ooh,
my mom, my, okay, there it goes. It all goes back to like our mothers or our
doesn't
parents.
it? Yeah.
But there's so much I'm solving in life right now. And she's just honed in on Monsieur Pickleball or Mr. Pickleball. And like, she's
Mm,
like, that's my favorite story to tell everyone. And I'm like, oh my God, there's so many other hefty things. But also just had a
mm,
great meeting this morning and it's all done. And there it is. I think in a way, like maybe actually like showing the whole process, like it can be as absurd as something called Monsieur Pickleball, but
mhm.
like it's got this like seriously legit process that is followed that would be what you would do for any
Yeah.
less absurd client, and then just like showing that creative process, t even buttoning it up for just myself or like sharing it,
Mhm.
dare I say it, like showing my mom. So ridiculous. But like that would be the thing that makes it be like it can come out as Monsieur Pickleball, it can come out as your whatever guidelines for whatever your thing is. Could be. Maybe that's the
I love that. Yeah, sharing all like the heft and the strategy that goes behind it because it's no different
right.
than any other process that you've gone through. And you're like an expert at guiding like other clients through that strategy process.
Yeah. So maybe that's just like own the step baby.
Yeah. Own, own the step, baby. And there's also part that you mentioned about like visual, like having a visual component to it.
Mhm.
Mention that as part of your like your strategy process. Um, will you share that with us this week?
Okay. I will share.
Okay.
Monsieur Pickle.
Yeah. I see claps and like support. I saw Camilla nodding. Mandy like keeps nodding. It's like, oh, the support is real. Emily did confettis. Yeah. Hell yeah. And we can like give you feedback or like send it out to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let us know what you want and how we can support you.
Sweet. Thank you.
Cool. Welcome. All right. We have about maybe like 10 minutes more or so. Does anyone else want to share like what's on their mind or feedback or comments?
I have a question. I realized that through the whole like experiments planning and everything, there wasn't really like maybe this is just like me being a little too practical. There wasn't really anything about like limitations in terms of what are my blockers right now to even hold the experiment. And I think that was just very naturally, it came up while I was trying to type it out. It's like, oh, I want to do this,
Mm.
but
Mhm.
yada, 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 yada. Or
Yeah.
even things like, okay, if I run this experiment, I guess like in the lines of what would make it a success or a failure, it's like, oh, but if I only do this for one day, like, does that make
Mm.
it true? Yeah, so
Mm.
is
Oh,
it,
interesting.
I
Yeah.
wonder if it's like a mindset thing where I just need to kind of, overcome it and be like, hey, an experiment is an experiment, just go for it, try it first, and
Mm.
then figure out the blockers again later. Or, yeah, I guess like, am I being too practical, or what are your thoughts around um, the limitations of experiments, I guess?
Yeah, I hear you. Great question. Can I ask you, can we go into it a little bit more?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. So
Or
I would love.
let me ask you a targeted question, Sam. Like what are the limitations that you're feeling that came up?
I think in the sense of like, oh, I want to start networking with people in Singapore since I have like zero,
Hmm.
like I only have like five friends there right now.
Hmm.
So in that sense, it's like, okay, how do I even start building my network, for
Hmm.
example?
Hmm.
So that was kind of an experiment, and like my limitation is like, well, right now, yes, there's the internet, but then I'm not physically there and I would prefer to physically be there. And then there's the
Hmm.
consideration of like being introvert and like holding space for myself. And
Yeah.
then there's just a lot of like side noise, I think, that's like holding me back.
Do you want to connect with people in Singapore virtually?
I mean, eventually I'll be there, but I also won't
Yeah.
be there until a month later.
Hmm.
So I would prefer to be able to physically meet them.
Hmm.
But then time is a thing. So then it's like, oh, maybe I should start virtually. And then it's like, okay, I don't know where to go from there.
It sounds like you don't want to do it yet. That's why I asked the question.
That could be it.
How does that sound like hearing that? Are you like, no, 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 Sarah, that's not it? Or maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, I think so. That's possible.
Can I reflect back like what I heard?
Yeah.
Okay. I heard, all right, I'm moving to Singapore. Super exciting. By the way, my family's from Singapore. We'll eat such good food. All right. I know five people. I want to expand my network. Um, but I don't like I'm feeling some kind of resistance to doing it remotely. I'd prefer to do it in person, but that's like going to happen in a month. So I wonder, like, actually, what is the question that comes up upon hearing that?
Mm, I guess like it's a bit of like time is of essence. Should I start now?
Mm.
But then there's
Mm.
also the dilemma of I should be enjoying my time here that I have left, I guess,
Mm.
and like finding a
Hmm.
balance between that.
Yeah. Why is time of the essence? Like, why are you feeling that urgency right now?
Um, I think being financially sustainable is one thing. Um,
Mm. Hmm.
and so part of it is that if I want to leverage network and like effectively find a job quickly, like
Mm.
starting earlier is probably
Mm.
better.
I see.
At least that's
Uh-huh.
also something that I've heard a lot.
Uh-huh.
It's like always start early and like, take interviews that you don't want just so you can get into interview prep. Um,
Always be networking, always be closing,
yes.
that kind of thing. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is like, should I be networking right now so then I can get a job as quick as possible and feel financially secure?
Mhm.
Okay. Do you know your runway of like how long you'd have like your safety net, basically, of how long you'd need to feel financially secure?
So I've pretty much burnt it out.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'm
So
really
there's the
trying to
urgency
get,
there.
yes.
Okay. And when you mentioned like balance, like Where do you live right now? Where are you moving from?
San Francisco.
Okay. Like there's a balance of hanging out with your friends in San Francisco while transitioning into Singapore, of like, I want to balance and like honor the time I've had in SF too. What does balance look like for you? What would you want balance to be?
That's a great question. I don't know. I feel like balance is always I feel like it's always a seesaw for me. Like
It's
never
never
like
like perfect line.
yeah.
100%. Yeah.
What would balance look like? I think at the very least is in my head, I have a really long to-do list of like, I gotta
Mm-hmm.
start packing, I gotta handle logistically, financially, all everything that I need to settle down.
Yeah.
Uh, Emotionally, there's blockage too in terms of like things
Yeah.
are wrapping up.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's hard to, I guess it's hard to put like how much time do I need? So it's really hard to plan time out at the
Mm,
same time.
yeah. I feel like I can feel the emotion. Like it was starting the last one, but and I think also like you mentioned it in the Monster Challenge too, that we're like in a period where we're letting go of things and like moving forward and like, wow, there's so many logistics that you are handling. And it's also like it sounds like there's a sadness there. Is it sadness? Yeah. Um, do you feel comfortable like naming what's bringing up the sadness for you?
Mm, mm, I think it's saying goodbye to community.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, I think that's the biggest part.
Yeah. Like, damn, you spent all this time like building up these connections and we're leaving some of them. And we're not like completely breaking ties with them, but it feels different, like in a different context, and there's more distance. Also, can anyone that's here, can we like send love to Sam? You can do it in the chat or just shout out love and support because it's really brave to show up like this. And I bet we can all relate to moving and leaving behind things.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just moved, by the way. I moved from the UK like in February, so I hear you. I wonder, like we talked about balance. I think part of it is like really giving yourself space, almost like honoring, like Susanna had, like honoring your time in SF and like letting you have that moment. And then for the in-person connection, I wonder, there are a lot of Singaporeans in the US. You go look where the Hainanese chicken rice is. I wonder if there's anyone that you can connect with in SF that's Singaporean. And then you can build on like the in-person
Mm,
and see if like they know people or groups or things to be a part of
mm.
when you move to Singapore. And that could be kind of like the hybrid of it.
I don't know where to find them.
Yeah, well, part of it is like after this asking, um, I don't know where we met each other, but probably there's so many Slacks and I can recommend a bunch, like asking on there, asking people that you know,
Mhm.
Googling Singaporeans and SF.
Okay.
I'll have a think too about Singaporeans I know, mainly in New York, but I think, and maybe like people in this chat know someone already. Um, Sydney wrote, like, sounds like you already have an SF community, but here in the Presidio? Oh, is that a place? Okay. Oh, if you feel like a walk or chat anytime, Elizabeth
Oh.
said, you're super awesome and powerful, such a brave vision for your future. Camilla said, like, meetups. We meet up in Singapore. Um, Side note, like, my sister just went solo traveling and used Bumble BFF
Mm.
through Taiwan. You could do that. But I think the biggest thing, Sam, is like what I'm hearing and feeling is like, man, there's like we're packing up, we're like saying goodbye to things, and that is an emotionally charged moment. Like it's sad. And rather than like, oh my God, I need to like be networking and like making these connections, like feet on the ground running, like what can we do to like give yourself those moments to really take that in? Maybe
Okay.
also to celebrate your time in SF too, and like the community that you made. And you've made connections in community before. You'll do it again. It almost feel weird if you were like in SF with your bags packed and then you're just like on Zoom calls all day talking to people in Singapore for your last couple weeks.
That's true.
Yeah. And maybe for other people when it feels weird, but I feel like for you it's not that right time for that mode.
Okay. I'll take time for myself then.
Yeah. Elizabeth just said I have a coach friend who lived in Singapore for a long time, and I think her family is from there. She could connect you with folks potentially. Susanna just found like this Luma with Singapore. Okay. Emily said I have a former co okay. So just ask our like community. There's so many people. Thank you for sharing all those things. And Sam, thanks for sharing too.
You.
Yeah. The in-between is tough. Yeah, 100%. Okay. We are going to, so actually, this is really what coaching is like for those of you who haven't come to coaching before. We're going to do more of this tomorrow. I really, really suggest you come to that and do the day 2 challenge. DM me if you have any questions about Authentic, and I'll see you tomorrow. Some of you in a couple minutes for the VIP call, but I will see most of you tomorrow, and thanks for coming. Okay. Bye, all.